You ever see a car company get away with something they absolutely shouldn't have? Like they found a loophole, exploited it, and somehow walked away without getting tackled by government regulators? Well, Dodge did exactly that in the late 70s, and they didn't do it with a sports car or some high-end muscle machine. Nope, they pulled it off with a pickup truck. A bright red, chrome-stacked, loud-mouthed monster that ended up being the fastest American vehicle you could buy at the time. This was the Dodge Little Red Express, and if you ever wondered what happens when a car company stops caring about rules and just decides to have fun, this is your answer. This video is inspired by 3 articles about the Dodge Little Red Express, one from Mac's Motor City Garage, another from Top Speed, and a third from Auto Evolution. You can find links to these articles in the Google Doc linked in the description. I highly recommend checking them out for more in-depth information. To understand why this truck even exists, we have to go back to the mid-1970s, a time when American performance was going extinct. By that point, car enthusiasts had been spoiled rotten for years. The 60s had been an era of unlimited horsepower, where carmakers just kept shoving bigger engines into smaller cars and seeing what would happen. 428s, 440s, 454s, 455s. If the number sounded huge, someone had stuffed it under a hood. But by the time the 70s rolled around, government regulations, insurance companies, and emissions laws started cracking down on all the fun. Horsepower ratings dropped, lead-footed teenagers started paying more for insurance than for their cars, and suddenly, performance cars weren't quite the untamed beasts they used to be. Even the legendary muscle cars, the ones that had once ruled the streets, were getting weaker. By 1978, a Corvette with the L82 engine was making 220 horsepower. That's right, America's sports car had the power of a sneeze. It was depressing. But Dodge wasn't ready to give up yet. While carmakers were scrambling to keep up with new emissions rules, Dodge's engineers noticed something strange. Light-duty trucks weren't being held to the same emission standards as passenger cars. That's right. If a vehicle was classified as a truck, it could avoid all sorts of restrictions. It didn't need a catalytic converter, which meant it could run true dual exhaust and breathe a whole lot better. So, someone at Dodge must have sat there staring at the rule book and thought, wait a second, what if we just built a muscle car, but made it a truck? And just like that, the Dodge Little Red Express was born. Dodge took their existing D150 Adventurer Utility pickup and decided it deserved way more power than any reasonable person would expect. So under the hood, they dropped in a high-performance 360 cubic inch E58 V8, a police spec engine that was already pretty strong. But Dodge wasn't about to just throw a cop motor in a truck and call it a day. They tweaked it to get even more performance. A Carter Thermoquad 4-barrel carburetor fed it more fuel and air. A hotter camshaft and valve springs, borrowed straight from the old 340 V8 performance engine, gave it better breathing and higher revs. Free-flowing dual exhaust without catalytic converters let it exhale properly. A cold air induction system helped keep temperatures down and power up. The result? 225 horsepower and 340 pound-feet of torque. Now, I know what you're thinking. 225 horsepower? That's nothing. But in 1978, this thing was a rocket ship. To put it in perspective, a brand new Chevrolet Corvette L82, one of the fastest cars of the year, had 220 horsepower and 290 pound-feet of torque, as we've already seen. With a 3-speed load-flight 727 automatic transmission and a 3.55-to-1 rear axle ratio, the Little Red Express could run 0 to 60 in just 7.8 seconds and hit the quarter mile in the 15-second range. That was muscle car territory, but in a pickup truck. Let me repeat that. This Dodge pickup truck could embarrass sports cars at stoplights. Imagine pulling up next to one in a brand new Corvette, thinking you've got an easy win, only to get gapped by a truck hauling lumber in the bed. If you're enjoying the video, feel free to subscribe. We're on a mission to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the month, and every click helps a ton. Of course, Dodge wasn't about to let this thing blend in with all the other work trucks on the road. They went all out to make sure everyone knew exactly what they were looking at. The body was painted in bright red. The bed featured real oak wood trim, and the biggest visual flex? Those massive chrome exhaust stacks shooting straight up behind the cab. These weren't just for show either. Those pipes were fully functional and made this truck one of the loudest vehicles on the road. Gold decals reading Lil Red Express Truck were slapped on the doors just in case people needed a reminder of what had just smoked them in a street race. And 15-inch slotted chrome wheels wrapped in fat tires gave it an aggressive stance. The whole package made sure that no one, not even the guy in the Corvette you just outran, could pretend he didn't see it happen. Not everyone was thrilled about a truck that sounded like a semi-truck blasting through a rock concert. Certain states took one look at those vertical exhaust stacks and said, nope. Some states banned it over noise regulations, others got it pulled from dealerships because it didn't meet emissions rules. Dodge still managed to sell 2,188 Little Red Express trucks in 1978, proving that plenty of people were willing to ignore a few minor legal inconveniences. But the government wasn't done yet. Dodge made a few changes in 1979. The front grille got a refresh with rectangular quad headlamps instead of the round ones. The shade of red was slightly different. And most importantly, the government caught on to Dodge's little trick. New regulations meant the 1979 model was forced to run a catalytic converter, which cut down on power. The truck still performed well, but the wildest version was already behind it. Despite that, Dodge managed to sell 5,118 units in 1979, bringing total production to 7,306 before the Little Red Express disappeared forever. If you're thinking about buying a Little Red Express, they usually go for around $30,000 to $45,000 from what I've seen. A 78 model in good shape tends to be on the higher end, especially since it's the more sought-after year. No catalytic converter and a little extra edge. The 79 models can be a bit cheaper, but let's be real, most people want the 78. Either way, if you're after one, be ready to spend some cash. Oh, and here's a fun little detail. Everyone calls it the Lil Red Express, but that wasn't actually its official name. When Dodge released it, they just called it the Lil Red Truck. But thanks to the massive decals on the doors that read Lil Red Express Truck, people just ran with that name, and it stuck. Even today, hardly anyone calls it by what Dodge originally intended. The Little Red Express was a ridiculous idea that actually worked. It took a loophole, a cop engine, and some of the loudest exhaust pipes in history and turned it into something special. Dodge bent the rules, had some laughs, and built something unforgettable. And that's why it still matters. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe and click on the recommended video that appears on the screen. It's all about the most beautiful interiors from American cars of the 1960s. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.